Hi, this is your host. How does the bear survive the entire winter without food? We are used to seeing bears in zoos where they get fed regularly by zookeepers. It's hard to imagine that such huge animals can spend months without eating anything at all. However, in their natural habitat, some bear species manage to endure an entire winter without eating even a single thing. So how do they manage not to starve to death? And what's the point of hibernation anyway? In this video, you will find out how much food a bear needs per day and how many calories it burns during its winter sleep. Do bears dream while hibernating? And most importantly, how come they don't die of starvation? The length of winter in different regions varies greatly. In the northern parts of North America and Eurasia, it can last from November to April. That's almost half a year. During this time, bears cannot get enough food. Berries, nuts, and other plants have already been picked clean by other animals. Moreover, in winter, all the fish go deep under the ice, and there's nothing left for the bears to eat. It seems pretty obvious why they have to fall into a state of hibernation. If they don't, they'll simply starve to death. But what happens inside the bear's body when it falls into a deep sleep? When a bear is awake, it spends most of its time looking for food. This is especially true for brown bears who prefer to feed on berries, roots, and other vegetation. Sometimes they can walk up to 20 kilometers a day in search of food. When you consider that a brown bear weighs about 400 kilograms, it's clear that such an amount of food is needed to sustain its enormous weight. A 400-kilometer bear eats about 20 kilos of food every day. That's like eating 2 whole watermelons a day. Can you imagine that? If a bear doesn't get enough food, its body will soon start breaking down its fat reserves to get energy. The bear will lose a lot of weight and become very thin. Bears usually need to gain enough fat in autumn, so that it lasts all winter. However, if the supply of fat is critically low, the bear's life will be in danger. Therefore, it's vital for them to fall into a state of hibernation when food is scarce. But how do bears not die of starvation during hibernation? Hibernation is a state of biological inactivity that some animals enter to survive cold winter months when there's not enough food. This means that their metabolism slows down along with their breathing, pulse, and body temperature. Hibernation is not sleep or a dormant state like that of a reptile or amphibian. The animal's body undergoes major changes. This allows the bear to survive without food and water for several months. During hibernation, the bear's body breaks down its own fat, turning it into energy. It turns out that the bear slowly but steadily loses weight throughout the winter, and it uses up its fat reserves. However, there's one problem. Although the bear's body breaks down fat during hibernation, it still needs some energy. Some scientists believe that bears have developed this ability to switch between burning fat and regular food, because their ancestors used to switch from eating berries to eating meat. These scientists assume that our current brown bears still retain this ability to switch between different types of nutrition. That's why they can go for months without food. While hibernating, the bear's body has its own internal clock that regulates its metabolism. When the body begins to break down fat, this process cannot be stopped until the fat reserves are completely exhausted. That's why the bear cannot stop burning fat, even if it starts eating berries again. This ability helps the bear survive the entire winter without needing to eat. However, it's not recommended to try to keep such a regime for too long. People sometimes forget to feed their pets, and then the cat or dog begins to lose weight. Well, that's fine for a short time, but if the pet continues to lose weight, it will eventually lead to serious health problems. Bears have learned to take advantage of the sun's rays. In winter, they often bask in the sun, although it may seem strange since they are preparing to fall into a state of hibernation. This behavior is called hyperthermia. Animals use it to warm up before hibernation and arouse themselves from it. Hyperthermia increases the bear's body temperature to the normal level after a long period of low temperatures. Otherwise, there's a risk of dying from hypothermia. Scientists know very little about how exactly bears increase their body temperature during hyperthermia. They only know that the bears move more actively, which helps them get warmer. Also, bears living in areas with little snow tend to bask in the sun more often than those living where it is snowy. Scientists think that bears in snowy areas use snow as a screen to protect them from wind and rain. At the same time, bears in areas without snow need the sun's rays more than the others. Bears can go without drinking for several months. But how do they do it? When a bear drinks water, it doesn't just quench its thirst, it also gets minerals that are essential for its body. Bears tend to look for places with mineral springs, which they drink from. During hibernation, the bear's body slows down the excretion of urine and the need for water goes away. Since the bear is in a state of biological inactivity, it practically does not sweat, which also saves water. However, upon waking up from hibernation, the first thing a bear does is go in search of water. It needs to rehydrate after a long period without it. Bears give birth in the den during hibernation, and the mother bear must wake up to nurse her cubs. In this case, the bear's body produces the hormone prolactin, which stimulates milk production. Milk contains a lot of water. That's how the mother bear can quench her thirst. Newborn cubs also need water, especially if it's hot outside. Newborn cubs cannot regulate their body temperature yet, so they need their mother's help. She licks them with her tongue to cool them down. The mother bear also needs water to quench her thirst. After all, she hasn't drunk any water for several months. If the mother bear doesn't wake up to nurse her cubs, they will die within a few days. The cubs are very small, weighing no more than 500 grams, and they can't survive without their mother's milk. How do bears fast for months without dying? Bears have adapted to prolonged fasting thanks to their ability to switch from burning carbohydrates and muscle to burning fat. Hibernation allows them to survive the winter with virtually no food and water. This state significantly reduces their metabolism and allows them to go without food for months. Even newborn cubs can go without eating for the first few weeks of their lives. During hibernation, the bear's body switches to burning its own fat, producing energy and nutrients. It's important to note that a bear needs less food than an ordinary large mammal of its size. Hibernation helps bears conserve energy and survive in harsh environments where food is scarce during certain seasons. During hibernation, the bear's body temperature drops slightly, its heart rate and breathing slow down, and its muscles become less active. All this helps the bear to save energy. Newborn cubs can also go for several months without eating because their bodies are adapted to extract maximum energy from milk. Cubs don't need extra food until they start exploring the world outside their den. Now let's figure out how many calories a bear needs per day. It is not easy to determine the exact calorie intake for a bear because it depends on various factors such as age, sex, weight, and activity level. Generally, bears need a lot of calories to meet their high energy requirements. An adult brown bear, for example, can consume up to 20,000 calories per day. That's a lot of calories. Hibernating bears need fewer calories, but they still need some calories to maintain their body functions. Hibernating bears can consume up to 3,500 calories per day. Calorie needs can vary depending on environmental conditions. For example, if it's very cold outside, the bear will need more calories to maintain its body temperature. The amount of calories a bear needs will also depend on whether it is an active predator or mostly eats berries and plants. To lose weight, a person needs to consume about 2,000 calories a day. On the contrary, to gain weight, you need to consume about 3,000 calories a day. Thus, a bear needs approximately the same amount of calories as an average person trying to gain weight. Can bears dream while hibernating? Yes, bears can dream while hibernating. Scientists believe that dreams are an essential part of sleep. During hibernation, the bear's brain activity slows down, but it doesn't stop completely. Studies conducted in recent years show that when bears dream, their brain waves change. This proves that bears experience rapid eye movement sleep, which is characteristic of dreaming. Scientists cannot know what exactly the bears dream about, but some believe that they dream about catching fish, which is very important for their survival. After all, fish is a source of protein and other essential nutrients. Maybe in their dreams, bears chase fish in clear and warm waters, not realizing that outside the den, the winter storms rage and the temperature reaches 40 degrees below zero. Some people say that bears are lazy animals, but if you watch a bear in a zoo, you'll see that these people are wrong. Bears are constantly moving, playing, and exploring their surroundings. They are definitely not lazy. But when winter comes, everything changes. The bear suddenly becomes lazy, stops playing, and spends most of its time sleeping. This behavior might seem strange, but it's actually necessary for the bear's survival. Hibernation allows bears to survive harsh winter conditions and food shortages. During hibernation, their body slows down and they need less food and water. Hibernation also helps bears conserve energy and survive cold winters when there's not enough food. That's why bears hibernate. They seem lazy, but they're actually just resting to gather enough strength to wake up and look for food again. Thank you for watching. Now you know how bears survive the winter. See you later.